how are you handling your test data right now?
Test data. So I know test data in their Django framework uses fixtures, but test data here I'm not so sure exactly about. Like, we don't have tests that go through and do mock data for add-ons or anything like that. We use a preview server which actually takes a production dump from the add-ons website, and it does that about once a month. But we do have quite a few test failures that come from the IDs of the add-ons changing between month to month, and also some of the XPath fails or some of the IDs change. So we deal with that, and that's one of the things, where you have to decide how granular your tests are going to be and what types of things you're actually going to look for and what you're going to ignore.
Selector
What's that?
The selector should fix that.
Selector should, yeah.
Just want to ask for the developer, do they use PyTest?
Oh, what do the developers
Yeah.
use? They use unit test through Django.
Okay.
Most of their tests are, they use fixtures. I don't know if you know what fixtures are, but fixtures are basically mock data. They look like JSON format. They might be JSON format. I'm not sure, but no. Okay, no. Yeah. Okay.
So
That's
because
my confusion.
Okay.
But the developers' unit tests are pretty good. Of course, they're not end-to-end comprehensive tests like we would do. So there is going to be some overlap, but we hope to be more comprehensive. And
So my question is, because I'm not sure if they are develop Python, then why not they just join this RC, Python test that you have developed?
their framework is, so they import quite a fewer modules, I think. I'm not sure exactly. I wish one of our web devs were actually here, but
I can guess that.
it's a lot quicker for them. Like, I've seen them write tests in like 5 minutes, literally.
Well, no, so the fixture stuff is integrated in Django and Selenium. So when you run in the Selenium test, you don't have those Django structures, and when they write the unit test of the fixtures, that's all part of Django. But Django has its own framework.
Oh yeah, and they don't use a real browser. They use kind of a mock internal browser, and they told us that they would prefer that we write our tests in Selenium because it actually runs the real browsers instead. So that's a good question.
There's a couple of Python mock browsers. I'm just curious.
I wish I knew. I could find out for you.
Did you guys get it from Ian?
From Ian Bicking?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think we had it before, but
Okay.
that
would answer it.
He's pretty influential, and whatever he suggests, I'm pretty sure the web dev team would be happy to incorporate. So, and Ian Bicking is basically a Python luminary, and he's going through and actually writing packaging for installation of most of our websites right now. So it's pretty cool. Oh, back there? I don't know how much time we have.
The microphone's got to catch up.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have.
You're doing good.
Okay.
Unless it's getting hot up there.
It is, but I'm not sure that's the heat lamp. I think it's just the questions. Yeah, it's just the pressure.
So when you run your smoke test and you mentioned that it runs against the VM, does the switching of VM is handled internally by end script or something like that?
We have a Python script that does that.
So
We don't. So we queue our tests in a format that tests that are meant for. So if we want to run our test against Windows, for example, in our smoke test, we pass it a parameter to run on Windows. Then when it's done, we queue another one for another platform.
So that queuing happens through what? Through
We have a script.
which is so Hudson drives that script?
Nope.
No? So I still don't understand how the queuing
All right.
happens.
Think Hudson's like a traffic cop, right? That calls out to Grid, and all that stuff is taken care of by Grid itself, is my understanding. Is that right, Raymond?
Since we're starting from
So the Selenium Grid is where we have configured all the VMs, and it has its own IP URL. So that's how, and in the suite, we loop through those environments. So Hudson, it's just the grid that takes care of switching between environments.
Because we can pass a single browser, we can pass platforms, we can pass all browsers, we can pass staging URLs, production URLs, the number of pages, the number of times to iterate through a page, number of add-ons. I mean, we're very, very granular. And that's why it's taken us quite a bit of time to figure that out and come up with all those classes.
So 2 unrelated questions. First is, how dynamic are these sites? How AJAX heavy are they?
Not too bad. When you start getting into things like add-on collections, you actually get AJAX, or adding reviews is not AJAX, but add-on collections is AJAX, and tagging is also AJAX. So there's some CRSF stuff going on, some XSS checking. But we don't really.
Most of our sites aren't already AJAX-y, so we don't have problems.
So not heavily dependent.
Not heavily, no.
Okay. And the other question is, and maybe this is a longer discussion for the two of us, but I've got a large, let's call it Celanese-based Selenium test suite, which depends entirely, like that gentleman was saying over there, on links, text, and IDs. And when I have to resort to XPath, I consider that to be a bug, and I go tell the developers about it. So I'm curious, what is it that your application requires primarily XPath and CSS selectors in order to make it work?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. So when I was writing IDE tests for Selenium, sorry, I should talk into the microphone. So when I was writing my IDE tests for the support website, we have a lot of static pages that are very easy to check, just verify title, verify element, whatever. And then you have some other pages that actually are very dynamic content, like, you know, the list of items will change, or the support text will change, things like that. And instead of verifying the text, you just want to verify that that element is present. And the best way to do that is to verify the XPath, and you usually only want to take like the top 2 parts, the top 2 nodes of that XPath, rather than the full XPath, or verifying the strings. Because we kept running these tests that were verifying titles and verifying names, and those things would change over time, and I didn't want to maintain those tests. And so I don't want to be in the business of checking content unless it's a title of a web page, or copyright policy or something like that. If it's just content that someone else changes, I just want to check that the DOM structure is correct, and that's where I'd use XPath and CSS locators.
I think I would probably clarify the XPath question. Is this the XPath? Do you handwrite these XPath expressions, or are these just generated from the recording tool?
We usually use Firebug, or there's an XPath inspector add-on as well.
But you create them?
Yes.
Okay, because I think I see where it could be considered a bug is if you take whatever Selenium IDE records for you. A recorded XPath might be considered a bad thing, but handcrafted goodness in CSS and XPath would probably be a good way to go.
We make sure that it's as accurate as possible, but also as foolproof as possible in case some other element moves up, but the positioning is still not as critical as the fact that it's there, yeah. Yep.
More questions? Well, how about a round of applause for this?